Okay, so yeah, basically this is HTML describes the structure of a web page. Every HTML element, HTML document has a doc type, an HTML tag, a head tag, and a body tag. The HTML specification adds preferences for semantic HTML. These includes things like headers, navs, mains, main section, and div. All right. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Basically, it allows to a web page created in 1996 by the World Wide Web Consortium. Some common CSS terms are selectors, which are the elements. I mean, if you could, I would probably have a job at Google right now. By selectors, which are elements that apply to that the rules apply to. Declarations are how elements should be styled. Properties indicate the aspects of an element that you want to change, and values specify the settings for a chosen property. So this is CSS in detail, and that's it for the PowerPoint. That was very quick because I actually want to get into coding. I don't like spending a whole lot of time in PowerPoints and stuff like that. So you just saw a glimpse of what we're actually going to be building. If you came to my Web Dev 1 workshop at the beginning of September, we built a portfolio. Unfortunately, I only have an hour for this workshop compared to 3 hours for the other one. So we're going to be building something that's much smaller. Just a little, header with some buttons and nice kind of UI looking. Okay, so let's open up Visual Studio Code. And right now I'm just on the blank getting started screen. And let me move something over. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to type, I'm not going to type, I'm going to open a new folder. So to do that, we're going to come up to File. We're going to click on Open. And it's going to ask us to open a folder or something like that. I'm going to go to Dev because that's where I keep all of my stuff at. And I'm going to create a new folder in here. Just call it Workshop. Create. Then I'm going to click on that down and click Open. And now we are inside of the workshop folder. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a HTML file. I keep looking at my screen to look at you guys, but my camera's right here. It's very weird for me. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up we're going to create a new HTML file. So to do that, we right click in this blank area to the left, and we click New File. And we're going to call this index.html. Now, if you, I'm not sure how many of you came to my previous HTML workshop, but you would have seen that I used something called Emmet. Basically, it allows us to scaffold a basic HTML document very easily. And to do that, previously I had to, I went by line and typed everything out. You don't have to do that. All you do is you do Shift, exclamation, and hit Enter. It's magic, right? I know. I'll accept your applause. No applause? Okay, all right, that's fine. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yes, my name is Dewan. Sorry. What was the shortcut? Yeah, I'll show you. Shift, exclamation, and hit Enter. And so let's kind of go line by line of what this is. This line doc type basically is telling the browser which version of HTML that we're using, because the browser needs to be able to interpret our file and understand what we're doing. So this basically tells it we're using HTML5. This is basically saying we are the document is written in English. These are saying the character sets that we want to use, which is Unicode 8. Um, and then this line right here is basically allowing it so that when our website is really, really small, it looks good. That's basically what this line is letting us do. And then the title is the thing that goes in the tab bar. So if you're looking at Hopin right now, you'll see the tab bar. It says HTML/CSS workshop. That's what's going to go in on this area right here. So I'm just going to call this workshop. How do you comment? You can comment like, oh, that's JavaScript. It's angle bracket, exclamation, dash dash. Yep. All right. So that's the title. Basically, anything in this head section will not be visible on the website except for this part right here because it's going to go on the tab bar. Contrary, anything in the body, that's going to be visible on the website. Okay. All right. So first, what I'm going to do is I want to create a main section. This main is going to store everything. Oh, so what I did, you know how I created the index file? Basically, what I did is I just clicked in this area right here, and I clicked new file, and then I named it index.html. Okay. And the reason why we name it index.html is because if I were to upload this to a server, the server is looking for a file called index.html. So I'm back in body and I'm going to create a main section. So to do that, I just type main, and then that does that, and I hit enter. And then I'm going to create a div, but I want to give this div a unique name. So to do that, I type div dot main dash content, and that creates a div with a class called main content. Right? And inside that main content, I want to have a header, not a header, but a heading. Sorry. So to create a heading, we type h1, and I'm going to give this a unique name of heading. So h1 dot heading. Okay. And then there, I'm going to type hey there. I'm going to use an emoji here. If you guys have been looking at the UP Discord, you notice I become like an emoji code master god right now. So I'm going to use an emoji here just to stick with the theme. So on Mac, to use an emoji, you do Command Control Space, and that brings up the emoji keyboard. On Windows, you use the Windows key colon. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I'm sorry, the Windows key semicolon. All right. Is that better? Make sure when you're on Hopin, you double click on the screen share. So that way it opens up in a bigger window. So to use an emoji, it's Command Control Space on Mac. We're going to use Wave. And then I'm going to add a break element. So to do that, I do BR. I'm going to type Harris and add another BR. Basically, this span tag allows us to style it separately from the H1, but we still want to keep it inside the H1. All right, so now that we're done there, I'm going to click beneath that. I'm going to create another div. BR stands for break, which basically allows us to move to the next line. and create some space in between it, because HTML doesn't really interpret new lines and spaces that well. It interprets like if you want to do a couple of spaces, but it doesn't interpret a new line. So that's when you have to use break. So I'm underneath the H1, and I'm going to create a div, but I'm also going to give this a unique name, a button-group. And then here, I'm going to create an anchor element. So we're going to do anchor, give that a name, a button. Actually, we're not going to give it a unique name, because if you look at my finished portfolio, you see we have 3 buttons. We want to style them all the same. So that's why we're going to give them the unique class. If I wanted to style them individually, I would give them an ID. An ID means that you cannot use it more than once. I actually can't really zoom in that much without not being able to see it on my own. So what you can do is you can, like I said, just click on the screen share, double click, and it'll open it up in a bigger window for you to see it. Okay. All right. So we do a dot button. And the anchor tag wants us to include an href, which is basically the link. So this first one is going to go to Twitter. Any Twitter devs in here can have a job, please, for making me put you first. Just saying. All right, and then it requires a name, or not a name, but the actual text. So this is going to be Twitter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this line. Actually, there's another attribute that I need to add. That's called anchor. I'm sorry, no, it's called target. And what this target is saying is it's saying to, when you click on this link, open it in a new tab. Don't open it up in the current tab, open it up in a new tab. So I'm going to copy this line. Paste it 2 times. And I'm going to change this to Facebook. And I change this to Instagram. My Facebook profile is different though. So it's hey, Dewan. This is Facebook. That's Instagram. Okay. So I saved that. And hold on. I saved that. And now we have a fully featured basic HTML website. So to actually view that, what we're going to do, if you are using Visual Studio Code to follow along, that's great. What you're going to do is you're going to type Shift-Command-X. That's going to open the extensions tab on this left side, and you're going to look for something called Live Server. You click the first one. Now I already have it installed, so let me uninstall it. It's going to ask me to reload it. And I'm going to type in again, Live Server. Shift Command, it should be Shift Control, or no, Shift Windows key. I'm not sure. So it's either Shift Windows key X or Shift Control X. Shift Control X, there you go. Yeah, so this opens up the extension. So we're going to look for a Live Server, and we're going to click Install. All right. Now that installs Live Server for me. And the reason why we want to have Live Server installed is because we want to see our website as any changes are being made. So normally what you would do, so normally what you would do is you would right click and you would copy the path, and then you would paste that path into your browser. But with live server, you just right click and you click open with live server. And it just opened up the website in live server. So this is what everyone's website should look like. It's very basic, but that's where CSS is going to come in, and that's what we're going to use to style. So we're going to come back over to the Explorer tab. So to come over to Explorer, you do Shift Command E, or on Windows Shift Control E. So to go live, you first install the live server. So you do Shift Command X on Mac or Shift Control X. You look for live server. You click this first one. You install it. You go back to the Explorer. So Shift Command E or Shift Control E. You right click, and then you click this icon or click this link. This is open with live server. To repeat the Twitter line command, well, this is it right here. So you have an anchor, you have an href. This is my personal Twitter. It could be your personal Twitter, or it can just be the Twitter website. You have a class of button, a target of blank. A target of blank. Then you close the A right here. You write Twitter, and then you add the closing tag. Okay. All right. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to click a new file, or I'm going to add a new file. So I'm going to go back to the Explorer tab and click New File, and we're going to create a file called main.css. All right. So I'm going to show you how CSS works. So first, I'm going to add a selector for body, and then I'm going to add a background color of, I don't know, pick one of these. Burly wood. Let's try that. So I saved that. I'm going to come here, refresh, nothing happened. And so then we have to ask, well, why didn't it refresh? Why isn't my website looking like burly wood or whatever that is? And the reason is because we didn't link the style sheet. So to link it, we're going to go back to HTML, the index.html. Underneath this title, we're going to type link : style sheet. I'm sorry, hold on, what? Link : CSS. That's going to create a link to a CSS file, but we didn't name our CSS file style.css. We named it, or in my case, I named it main.css. So now that if I save that, and I come back here to my refreshed website, you see I now have that background. This looks kind of ugly, and we don't really want it, so we're going to change it. All right, but first what we're going to do is we're just going to set up some basic styles. So the first thing that we're going to do, let me remove this. We're going to use what's called a universal selector. And there are different types of selectors in CSS. Universal selector basically does what it says. It selects everything. It universally selects everything. So what we want to do is we want to change the margin. We'll make that 0, padding 0, box sizing, border. And you see it's actually sizing, not size on, whatever that is. You see I'm getting like a kind of an underline here. Did you save it? If it's showing up as a blank screen, it's probably because you didn't save it. But the reason why I'm getting some kind of underline here is because, all right, well, I'll have to take that later then, because if you saved it and then you added stuff, it shouldn't be showing up as blank. But the reason why we're getting this error is because each line needs to end in a semicolon. Okay. And basically what margin does, margin adds space to the outside of an element. Padding spaces add space to the inside of an element. So if you have a paragraph that's like a box like this, margin would add space on the outside of that. Padding would add space in the inside. And box sizing says, I want you to include the border in the calculation for the width and the height of an element. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And you saw previously everything was kind of spaced out to the side. Now it's all bunched up together. And we do that so we can individually change the padding and margin on our own. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do HTML, comma, body. This selects the HTML and the body. Yeah, sure. It's this right here. So it's link, rail, style sheet, href main.css. And to do that, you just do link, colon, CSS. You change the style right here to whatever you named your file. Okay, so I'm going to select HTML and body. And in there, I'm going to set the height to 100%. Set the min to 100%. Set the width to 100%. Min width to 100%. All right. And then I'm going to select HTML by itself. And I'm going to set the font size to 62.5%. And the reason why I set it to 62.5% is because the font size is originally 16 pixels, but I like to work with in terms of 10 pixels. And so 62.5% of 16 equals 10. And no, I did not just come up with that calculation like I'm some genius. I just do this all the time, and so that's how I know that number. All right. So we're going to set the body, the font size of the body, to 1.5 rem. Font size. All right, so basically this sets the font of every element to 1.5 rem, which is basically 1.5 times the font size of the root, and the root of the document is HTML, and the root font size is 10 pixels, so 1.5 times 10 makes it 15. Okay. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a font. So right now we just have the default font that the browser interprets it as. I'm using Firefox or Chrome, whichever one. Firefox will have a different font from Chrome. Chrome will have a different font from Safari. Safari will have a different font from Opera, so on and so on and so on and so on. So we want to add our own font so it looks uniform across every different browser. So I'm going to just copy this line and paste it in Hopin so you guys have it. So we're going to take that line, go to HTML, and underneath where we linked our style sheet, we're just going to paste that line. Okay. What was the link line in the HTML file? Well, this link line links to CSS, so we can see our styles being reflected. And this link file line as the custom font. So to actually use our font, we're going to say font family. And the font that we're using is called Open Sans. I'm sorry, Open Sans, not dash. And we want to add a backup just in case for some reason Open Sans is no longer available. We want to add a backup. And this backup is on everyone's computer, whether you know it or not, it's on your computer. And that's called sans-serif. So if I come back to my browser, you see our font did change just a little bit. It looks a little bit different. So that's kind of like the base styles for our website. Now we're going to get into like actually styling and laying out and stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to style our main. All right. And if you don't know what main is or what it takes up, what you can do is you can do border. .vs Code was added by our text editor because we're using live server. So it just has like preferences and stuff like that. But it's not important to the workshop. So if you don't know where main is, you can do border 2 pixels solid black. And now we know exactly what main is. But see, what we want for main is we don't want it to be this small. We want it to take up the full width and height of the document. So to do that, what we do is we set height equal to 100 VH and width equal to 100 VW. This basically just says that main should be 100% of the viewport height and 100% of the viewport width. So if I refresh, now you see our border no longer ends right here. It's all the way down here. You can't really see it because it's very, very thin, but it does extend all the way down here. I can remove that line because we don't really need it for styling. All right. One thing I do want to add is I want to add a background. If you look at the finished website, I don't actually have it up right now, but we had a background. Now you can get those backgrounds from anywhere. I tend to use a service called Unsplash. So that's unsplash.com. You just search for an image and it's there. I already have one on my computer, so I'm going to use that. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder inside the Explorer. So new folder, I'm going to call it Assets. All right. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that image and paste it in there. So give me a second to find that. Right there. So I just pasted it into the assets folder. What you can do is you can just drag it. If you were able to, you were the one whose website didn't show up. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, then, because you should have that. But hold on. Let me continue with this part right here. So we're going to add that image that I just found. You can use any image that you want to. So mine's just going to be background. I'm going to use background. And we're going to get the URL to that image. And that's going to be in this current directory in the assets folder. And it's going to be vg.jpg. We want to make sure that it does not repeat. So we do no-repeat, and we want it to be centered horizontally and vertically. So we do center, and we want it to be take up the full width and height of the container. So to do that, we do background size, cover. Now I go back here and you see we actually have that image inside our browser. But what I want to do is that kind of is drowning, like you can't really see the text that well. And I don't really like using it exactly like that. So I want to edit it by adding a linear gradient. So I'm going to type linear gradient. So RGBA 00000.6. This is saying we want the color black, but we want it at 60% opacity. Where are you seeing that little red squiggle at? But I want to copy this inside linear gradient. All right, so you have it typed exactly like this. You have the semicolon up above there. And do you have a semicolon after 0? Make sure you have a semicolon after margin. And okay, that's good. So I'm going to copy this line here. This RGBA line. I'm going to add a comma and paste that again. Oh, I'm running into an error actually. Oh, I need to add a comma to the end of this line. And there. So we added a little bit of a gradient to it. All right, so one thing I want to do is I want to center this box right here. And so to do that, I'm inside main still, and I'm going to create a flex box. So I'm going to say display flex. Flex direction column. And I'm going to set justify content to center. And you see it centered it for me. But I also want to center the stuff inside of this box. So to do that, I'm going to type .main dash content. I'm going to make that a flex box. Set the flex direction again to column. Justify content center. And we're going to align the text center as well. If I could spell align and see everything is centered and the text. So now let's add, let's style that heading. So to do that, we're going to select heading. Move up so you can see that a little bit better. Heading. When I type in linear gradient, it doesn't give. So you actually have to do that. So let me go back here to this line again. All right. So we're going to type linear dash gradient, and that gives us 2 parentheses. Then we're going to type RGBA parenthesis. Then we're going to type 0, 0, 0, 0.6. And then we're going to type comma RGBA 0, 0, 0.3, and then add a comma to the end of that line. Okay. Let me go back to styling the heading. So I want the heading to have a larger font size. So to do that, I'm going to add a font size of 4 rem. And again, 4 rem is basically saying 4 times the size of the root element. Root element is 10 pixels, so now this is 40 pixels. And I want to add a color of white. This may look very weird, but it's basically a hexadecimal, and this evaluates to like 128, something like that. It's very weird, but yeah, that's how colors are interpreted. Then I'm going to add a font weight of 600. And remember, we have that span. So I want to add a color to that. So I'm going to just select span, give that a color, hashtag 39A26D. Oh, where did I mess up? My gradient. Oh, there it is. All right. And so this is kind of what our website looks like so far. Not bad. The only thing that we have left to style is these buttons and the button group. So let's get to the button group. So I'm going to type dot button dash group. Make that a flex box. Set flex direction to column. And I'm going to add a button. And I'm going to start, this is styling the button. So I'm going to set the padding to 1 rem space 2.5 rem. Do you name the div classes whatever you want? Yeah, so you name them whatever you want. You have to use the attribute class, but anything after that, you can name it whatever you want. There are some, I mean, obviously any developer would have their preferences of how they want to name them. For this workshop, I'm not really sticking to any preference just because it would take forever. All right, so we add some padding to the buttons. And now we're going to add a margin bottom. Add margin bottom of 1 rem. And we're going to add a border radius. Basically, this border radius adds a curve. So imagine if we have a rectangle, it's going to add a curve to each of the 4 corners, okay? We're going to give them a background of transparent. And we're going to set the border color. So we're going to have a border with a thickness of 5 pixels, but 0.5 rem. We're going to make it solid, and we're going to use the same color that we used up above for the span. We're going to set a font size for whatever's inside that button of 2 rem, and make the color of that text white. So you'll notice so far I've shown you three different ways of how you can add colors. So you can use color names like this, white. You can use hexadecimal. You can use a shorter version of hexadecimal, and you can use RGBA. There's also another way where you can use something called HSL and HSLA, which stands for hue, saturation, light. Um, so there are a lot of different ways that you can add color in CSS. So one thing we want to do is we want to get rid of these text decorations. We want to get rid of these underlines. So to do that, we type text dash decoration none, and we're going to change the font weight. Make it a little bit smaller, actually bigger in this case, and it's 300. We're going to give them a width of 90%, a margin of 0, auto 1 rem. Actually, I can remove this margin bottom right here because it's being duplicated right here. All right, so if we save that, now we have what our portfolio kind of looked like at the beginning. But one thing we want to add is we have a little bit of time left, so we can add a little bit of extra styling, some extra on top of there. So one thing I want to add is I want to, whenever I hover over these buttons, I want the background to change. And so to do that, what I would do is I would type, I'm going to use a pseudo class. So first we would type dot button, hover, and I'm going to set the background dash color to be hashtag, what is this, 39A26D. And I'm going to set the border to be 0.5 rem solid transparent. So now I say that, I come back, and you see it's adding that hover. So when we hover over something, it changes the background. But it's happening a little bit too quickly. You don't really get to see the transition. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add something called transition. So we're going to go to button, and we're going to type transition. And we're going to say all ease in dash out. Ease in dash out is defining the timing function. And that's something that's like way beyond the scope of this workshop, but yeah, it's something that you may want to look into. And we're going to set how long we want the transition to take. So we're going to use 0.5 seconds. I'm sorry. Yeah, 0.5 seconds, which is 5 milliseconds. I'm sorry, it's not 5 milliseconds, but anyway, save that. And now you see the hover is happening a little bit more cleanly. Okay. Now, one thing we can also add, how much time we have left? We have 10 minutes. We can get through this pretty quickly. So right now, the website has been designed by something called mobile first responsiveness, or mobile first design. So basically, I designed it to look better on a phone first, so that way I can scale it upwards. So like if I move my browser, it doesn't really look that good at a bigger size. So to change this, we're going to add something called media queries. So I'm going to say add media. Min width 768 pixels. This is basically saying anything bigger than 768 pixels, do what we're about to do in here. So we're going to set main. We're going to make that flex direction row. We're going to select main dash content. We're going to also make this a row, flex box. We're going to change the justified content to space around. Align items center. Sorry, I'm going a little bit too fast, but we are getting kind of close to the time right now. This video, this workshop is being recorded, so you guys should have access to it later on. Good. Technically, it's $200, but don't tell anyone because I didn't pay $200 for it. Dot button group. We're going to say flex dash direction row. It'll be on YouTube. And we're also going to style the buttons. All right. So now let's save that. We should already be refreshed. And see there, it looks a lot better at a bigger screen width. We have 7 minutes left, so I want to show you something. I want to show you something that's very bonus. Was not originally included in this workshop. We're going to deploy our little portfolio that we built. So we're going to use something called Netlify drop. So if you just search for something called Netlify drop, we can basically take our entire website. All right. Bring this over here so you guys can see it. I'm taking this entire workshop right here. I'm going to click and drag, if I can drag. Drop it. Oh no, we track errors automatically. Oh, please don't error out on me. There we go. Okay. Now we have a deployed website. So if you guys want to see it, there it is. You can open it up on your phone. It should look pretty good there. But that's it. So we just use something called Netlify drop. It's a very simple way to deploy a website. Netlify. Sorry. No. Just search for something called Netlify drop. You can take your folder, drag it in there, and it'll generate a website. It'll deploy your website and generate it for you. It does only work with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you're working with something like React, you'll just have to use the regular Netlify, but that's also very simple and easy to learn. So yeah, that's going to be it for this workshop. We were able to get through everything, which is very surprising. I'll be in here for a couple of more minutes. So if you guys have any questions, I know I wasn't able to answer them while I was coding, but I'll try to get in here and see if I can help out now. Yep, no problem. Hope you guys can attend all the other workshops. It's going to be on the UPE YouTube. If you're not, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with UPE because we have over 1,000 hackers here. Yes, I'll be on Discord. Um, I'm trying to look up the YouTube channel so I can paste it in here for you guys. Oh, yep, someone already beat me to it. For some reason, VS Code isn't generating for me automatically. All right, so you know what? We're probably going to have to leave here in a couple of minutes. Uh, are you serious, Harold? Please, Dreamweaver? No, please don't use Dreamweaver. Um, I mean, you can design it in XD. I've designed it in XD, but please don't use Dreamweaver to develop a website. Uh, it's not that hard to actually write HTML and CSS. My name, I'll show you. Hold on. I don't know if you can see, but that's me right here. Dewan emoji code God Harris or whatever. I'm the fourth one or whatever. Okay. The reason why I say don't use Dreamweaver just because it's so easy to develop an HTML and CSS, and Dreamweaver just abstracts a lot of unnecessary stuff for you. And if you're interested in getting a job, they're not going to really care if you know Dreamweaver. I mean, if especially if it's going to be a front end job, they will prefer you know HTML and CSS and JavaScript, not Dreamweaver. That's why I say that. All right, guys. I'm gonna head out for here. I'm gonna post a message in the web development chat, so you guys can see me and ask any questions. And yeah, hopefully you guys can make it to our JavaScript workshop later on today. All right, bye, guys.